The effects from President Trump's tariffs are being felt around the country. Here in the Valley, Phantom Fireworks had to pause production on fireworks earlier this month due to the 145% tariff on goods from China. Here to talk about how these tariffs will impact the industry and their business and possibly those summer celebrations is Phantom Fireworks Director of Government Affairs, Dan Peart. Dan, thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Phantom Fireworks has already had to pause production. Can you give us an update on how it's going right now with Phantom and some of your operations with the tariffs now in place?
Sure, of course. You know, we've certainly been paying attention to all the talks in the last few weeks as China both initially founded and created the world's consumer fireworks market, and to this day is producing probably 99% of the world's consumer fireworks. So the entire industry has certainly taken a step back and a pause to re-examine what's happened in the last few weeks. You know, at Phantom, I think we understand that the administration has a plan and that our trade policies are changing. It's unfortunate that the timing of this is happening kind of during the peak production and shipping time for the consumer fireworks industry. You know, at Phantom, we think that we are well positioned as anyone going into what we think is going to be a great 4th of July. And we think we're going to be okay to get through the 4th of July, but we expect that we'll probably have some empty shelves and maybe even some empty stores after the 4th of July.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah,
it's unfortunate because, as I said, there's no option to turn to besides China. There's no production at any scale to speak of anywhere else in the country. And to bring that production here in the United States would take at minimum years, you know, to set up the infrastructure and the manpower and all of that. So it's an unfortunate situation, but we're hopeful. We hope for the best.
With what you have in stock now and on the shelves, will that affect the prices, or do you think that's what the future shipments will affect as the tariffs will maybe raise those prices?
Well, we continued to get some merchandise in when the initial 20% tariffs were announced, and then once the additional 125% on top of that was when we went and made the decision to suspend production. So I don't think we're going to get a lot of product in at that rate, and we'll take things as a case-by-case basis with the other things or with the product that arrived before that. As I said, I think we're well enough positioned that we can minimize any impact that gets passed along to the consumer in that end, but we'll have to look at everything on an individual basis and figure out what the softest way to land that is.
And I know you've reached out to Ohio lawmakers. They're trying to get an exemption for fireworks. How's that process going? Have you made any headway?
Well, we'll find out if we've made any headway. We've certainly made a lot of contacts. We've had a lot of communication with a number of people in the last few weeks, and we'll continue. There's one important phone call that the industry is certainly waiting for, and we hope to get. We remember that we were included in an exemption in 2017 when this issue came up before. So that's part of the reason why we remain hopeful that we'll again be included in those rounds of exemptions this year.
Yeah, May is just around the corner. Obviously, summer is a huge time of the year, like you mentioned, for your fireworks business. Do you think that this may impact the consumer level or even the commercial level shows? Or do you think that everything will be pretty much okay because you've got what you need here in the U.S. right now?
Lindsay, I think it's a little early to tell, and I think it depends how long this carries on. I think if it continues to last, you know, weeks, months into the future, I think that there will be an effect at both the municipal level for people that enjoy, you know, their show, the shows all the way from here in, you know, Austintown and Boardman and Canfield and Poland, all the way to New York and Chicago, everywhere. I think we'll have to wait and see how the effects or how long it takes for this to play out. But hopefully this gets resolved and we don't see a lot of effects for this coming year. And we have to remember that going into next year is our country's 250th anniversary. And the celebration around the 4th of July will be significant. So we want to make sure that all the companies that are operating this year are around to operate next year and join into that celebration.
All right, we'll watch to see what happens, especially when it comes to those summer shows in the sky. Dan, thank you so much for joining us right here at 5 to give us an update.
Thanks again, Lindsay.